Ah, yes, the Democrat Party in 2023. Gender dysphoria, financial recklessness, war in Europe. I think that's one of the highlights, don't you? The war in Europe. Haven't had a major war in Europe in a long time, have we? Maybe Joe Biden should get a Nobel Peace Prize like Obama, who then went on to bomb 8 countries, carry out military operations in 8 countries, the greatest number since World War II. But since he was Obama, it was okay. He already had the Nobel Peace Prize. There was more Joe Biden idiocy at the White House yesterday, but we only have time for so much. He also tried to talk about the movie Top Gun, but he couldn't remember what it was called, so a kid had to remind him. And then he got that wrong. My favorite movie was the new movie about that guy who flies jet planes. You know the one I'm talking about? This is what Joe Biden said to the little children at the White House yesterday. And one of the little children said, Top Gun, which is kind of fun. That's good, the little kid said. And then Biden, he said, Top Gun. Did you see Top One, Maverick? Now, he just said Top Gun, but then a moment later, it slipped away again, and he called it Top One, Maverick. Completely ridiculous. And then eventually, it was a little kid who told him it was time for him to go inside the White House. It was time for him to leave and go inside the White House because, that's your president of the United States. And if we had a news media, they'd be telling us about all this stuff every day. Imagine if Donald Trump had a brain this defective, or any Republican for that matter. Just amazing. So after more than 20 minutes hanging with the little children and being embarrassed repeatedly by not remembering Ireland, not remembering Top Gun, not remembering how many grandchildren he has, or lying about how many grandchildren he has, there was a child there, seemed to channel what parents might have been thinking. Mr. President, a little child said, I heard you have to go back to the Oval Office. And then he went back to the office. He did take a little girl, a 10-year-old girl, to the Oval Office, but you should keep him away from the kids because he's a Democrat. And honestly, they're a danger to children at this point. Yeah, so it was a kid who told him to go back inside the White House, and he couldn't remember Top Gun. And kid answered his questions for him but no cognitive test for him. Remember, the news media banged the drums, pounded the drums, demanding that President Donald Trump take a cognitive test. And not the case with Joe Biden when there are obvious and clear deficits. Just amazing. Yeah, the Daily Mail has a better story on it than the Washington Post or the New York Times. Biden struggles through children's press conference. A kid puts him out of his misery and tells him to go back inside. The kid may have been the child of a senior White House staffer, just trying to pull the plug on that, on the tragedy that was his moment in the sun yesterday. Just amazing. Man, oh man. Extraordinary. The Daily Caller has a story today as well. Now, I've got more. I got to get back to the Minnesota fascists. They call themselves Democrats, but they're really not. Gosh, are they not? The House of Representatives, it turns out, has repealed a bill. You know that they like to. You got the Democrats. They pass stuff, and then you have to have the Republicans come in to undo the damage that the Democrats have done because they're not on our side. And they love communist China. Everything they do. I was talking yesterday about how they want to make all U.S. military vehicles electric within 7 years. Right? 2030. Make them all electric, which is great news for communist China because we'd have to buy all the batteries for all the vehicles from them. And then you're raging, the 10th Mountain Division across the deserts of fill in the blank. And, hey, where are the charging stations? good military strategy. And then it turns out that we're very dependent on China and Russia for our ammunition supply chain for the U.S. military. Whatever genius and gang of geniuses allowed that to happen should be put on trial. Just amazing. Now, today, the Daily Caller has the story, House passes bipartisan bill to repeal Biden's China solar rules. The House of Representatives, run by Republicans, thankfully, passed a resolution on Friday morning to repeal President Joe Biden's moratorium on solar panel tariffs to several Southeast Asian nations where Chinese firms linked to slave labor have reportedly been assembling their products to avoid U.S. tariffs. The resolution passed 221 to 202. You know, the Democrats are voting pro-China, pro-communism, because they're very, very unwell. With the support of most Republicans and 12 Democrats, with supporters arguing that in the preceding debates, that the legislation was necessary both to support the U.S. solar industry while simultaneously holding China accountable for avoiding tariffs by putting the plants in other countries. Democrat detractors pointed opposition from industry, trade groups, arguing that the moratorium was set to run out next summer. But, you know, you wouldn't want to rush things. You want to help China wherever you can in whatever little way with a wink and a nod. I wonder how Fang played into this. How did Eric Swalwell vote? I think I'm going to go ahead and bet that he betted and he voted rather in favor of China and the interests of China. Republicans, in the meanwhile, are interested in growing the U.S. solar energy sector and not the Chinese energy sector. But you know how those Democrats are. And honestly, Eric Swalwell, with his long-time sexual relationship with a Chinese spy named Fang, wow, just extraordinary times, extraordinary times. And the Democrats get away with everything. It's pretty amazing. Man. And honestly, you know, I go back and forth with my friend Seton Motley a lot, and we were talking. It's like, why do the Republicans in the House not come out and hold a major press conference outlining all of Joe Biden's gaffes and demanding that he take a cognitive test because there is concern that the President of the United States is suffering from dementia, and perhaps he should be removed under the 25th Amendment as president. But then, of course, we end up with Kamala, don't we? Let's go back to some audio here. The madness never stops. Oh, there's another one I wanted to get to as well about the Washington Post guy who is I mentioned earlier, and I was actually being a little tongue-in-cheek, but let me start over not being tongue-in-cheek, because there's a Washington Post reporter who is a columnist, and he's advocating something. Now, I just want to play along a little bit here. I want to, you know, we've got an audience of 400 million people every hour of every day. I'm embellishing slightly. Everybody talks about radio audiences. It's a funny process, but the 2.6 billion people that listen to this show every day, I want to encourage everyone, when you see Democrats out in public, elected officials, you see the mayor, you see members of Congress, you see them out in public, I want to encourage you to confront them and to criticize them. And I want you to criticize them enough to make sure that, you know, that they're told when they go to you see them going to church, you see them in the grocery store. I want you to yell at them and tell them that you passed a terrible bill and you acted like a bigot. Now, of course, I would never recommend anything of the kind because I'm not a barbarian, I'm not a communist, I'm not a fascist, and I believe in civil discourse and a civilized society. The left, of course, does not. But that's what Perry Bacon Jr. at the Washington Post told an interviewer on naturally the Comedy Channel, because Comedy Central, because that's just one of their many propaganda outlets. But the Washington Post columnist Perry Bacon Jr., who's a racist, went on there and instructed people, encouraged people to harass Republicans in public places. And, the reason that you knew I was kidding is because he said, so, they're told when they go to church, well, you're never going to find a Democrat going to church, unless it's the Church of Satan, maybe, the Church of Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood, the Church of Burn America to the Ground. But that's Perry Bacon Jr. at the Washington Post, and this is fine because they did this. It started with, Sarah Huckabee Sanders at a restaurant, and they dialed it up. And this is the crazy left. They don't believe in civilization, and I do. So I wouldn't encourage people to do that. But Washington Post columnist who should be fired, he should be canceled, he should be destroyed. I don't believe that either. He's entitled to his vulgar and vile opinion because it's the United States of America. But this is the mainstream news media and the mainstream Democrat Party encouraging public conflict over politics. These are the people that rioted and looted in too many cities to list here. You see in San Francisco all the stores that are now battening the hatches on everything, putting everything behind plastic. Every aisle is locked behind plexiglass because Democrats. And I was playing for you Harry Niska, the state representative in Minnesota, who's talking about the Democrats have a plan in Minnesota. It's legislation. It's not just a plan. And Samantha Vang, a Democrat, encouraging that they've got their bias registry. And when people say things online or in a public forum, the Democrats want to enter your name and your comments into a state registry, which they call a bias registry. And Harry Niska, soundbite number 12, described it this way this morning on the television.
Either way, it's a way to chill speech, obviously legitimate political speech. The clip you showed is just one example that I tried to use of several different examples from across the spectrum, where we're talking about legitimate political opinions that people express in the marketplace of ideas. And if the government doesn't like it, or if a victim doesn't like it, or a certain person on the other side of the aisle doesn't like it, then under the bill that we passed out of the Minnesota House, and similar language has already passed out of the Senate, that's going to go into what's really almost a Soviet-style snitch line, or a CCP-style social credit scoring database that we don't know what the Department of Human Rights or what the government is going to do with that in the future. They say they want to use it to shape future legislation, and that's pretty scary too.
That's pretty scary too. He's a normal person, a normal American. Speaking of which, at the Chris Plant store on Al Gore's Amazing Internet, we have T-shirts and coffee mugs with Remember Normal, which is a good thing to do and for all of us to do. And the Democrats are making it harder and harder to remember normal because they're dismantling normal. And these people are just crazy. Now, there's also a transgender legislator in the state of Montana, of all places, believe it or not, who has been temporarily kicked out of the chamber, the State House chamber, because he has been disrupting. See, that'll go into the bias registry because I called him or he. But wait till you hear this, because they're crazy. They're bat guano crazy. They're all nuts. They need help, but first they need to shut up. Just saying, and stop picking fights with everybody over everything. Maybelline, Bud Light, professional basketball. They canceled. Phil Jackson, the NBA legend, can't watch the NBA anymore because they've become so political. The banking crisis continues to spiral. The second largest bank failure in U.S. history just happened very recently. And we Americans need a place to turn to protect our hard-earned savings. You really can't trust a bank these days with everything. You need to diversify. And now, good idea to call my friends at American Alternative Assets. Call them at 888-4-GOLD-20 to get your free personal wealth protection guide. They can help you protect your retirement savings by rolling over your IRA or 401k into physical gold, a physical gold IRA. The fact is, you can hold physical gold and silver in your retirement account while maintaining its tax-deferred status, all outside of the banking system. So call 888-4-GOLD-20. Call them today and get your free wealth protection guide. No obligation. American Alternative Assets has earned an A-plus accreditation from the Better Business Bureau. So protect your savings now before it's too late. Call American Alternative Assets at 888-4-GOLD-20 to secure your free gold and silver guide today. Individual results may vary. There's no guarantee that past performance will be indicative of future results. Seek your own legal, tax, investment, and financial advice before opening an account. Yeah. Yeah, and tomorrow is the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Lefties are planning on blockading it because, the weather. It's the weather. They're very upset about it. That and Whoopi Goldberg and transgender Montana. Hey, Chris here with some exciting news. Now you can listen to me live on the WMAL app. Doesn't matter if you're in your car, in the office, on the go. The WMAL app delivers crystal clear around-the-clock news coverage anywhere with cell service or Wi-Fi. So don't miss a second of your favorite shows. Download the WMAL app today on the Apple App Store or at Google Play Store. We've still got crazy environmentalists coming, and a little Whoopi Goldberg who's an angry, hate-filled, crazy person, which is why ABC pays her millions of dollars, because it's their brand of hate. But right now, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Matt calling from Chicago, Illinois. Matt, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, Chris, I just wanted to point out, everybody's calling Dylan Mulvaney a TikTok influencer.
Yeah.
I believe that's probably the politically correct way of calling him a groomer.
He is, I guess that's true. He claims to have a whole lot of people following his every whim, his every move. Honestly, I'm not a woman, but if I were, I would find the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing to be quite insulting. And I can't speak for all women. Actually, why not? I can speak for all women. If he can be a woman, I guess I can speak for women. He is, he's mocking women. It is the perfect analogy is blackface, which a lot of Democrats.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, a lot of Democrats are famous for dressing up in blackface. The former Democrat governor of Virginia, and you got that Trudeau guy in Canada. He's a lefty, and they love their blackface. Ted Danson. Hey, Matt, I've got an event coming up June 8th in Chicago with WLS. Have you looked at the WLS website for the big event?
I haven't, but I've been to two of your events in the past.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. Oh, that's good.
And I have a Wuhan Red Death shirt, and I think you should come up with a new one. Put a needle on there and put "I survived the vaccine."
All right. I like it. See, we've got a creative audience here. Thank you, Matt. Now, the crime rate across America is getting much worse because the Democrats love criminals and hate the police. But at least the chief of police in Washington, D.C. is going on to get a job at the FBI, where he can do nationally what he's done locally. We're number 4. We're number 4 in homicide. But we're, carjackings everywhere. Carjackings are more common than ever before. The Daily Mail has the story, but the Washington Post does not. They're a British paper, not even an American paper. They cover the news in America better than the Washington Post and the New York Times do. The headline is, "Murder Rates Jump Another 10% in the Biggest U.S. Cities Since 2021. Memphis, New Orleans, Richmond, and other Democrat-led cities are nation's homicide hotspots, study shows. Right. Murder rates jumped by 10% in the biggest U.S. cities, 2021 to 23. They have scholars, say cops fear returning to high crime areas after Black Lives Matter protests. Young urban black men are by far the most likely Americans to be murdered, also to do the murdering. Memphis, New Orleans, and Richmond rank as America's homicide hotspots, with scholars linking their rising murder rates to soft-on-crime Democrat leadership and low police morale, because the Democrats have waged war on the police because they're the party of crime and criminals. They want to get the vote to all convicted criminals in all prisons and jails in the United States because they know that that is an untapped vein of Democrat voters. Study by WalletHub found that murder rates jumped by 10% in the country's biggest cities between the first quarter of 2021 and the same period this year. And they continue to head up. It was released as Wallace Shawn Jr., 67, was arrested and charged with second-degree murder over shooting his uncle in Memphis. Did you see that in Memphis, Tennessee? Did you see, there was this incident a week ago where the 6-year-old girl was shot in the face, bullet fragment, because a basketball went into the front yard and it's all about race, of a black man. The black man chased a white family down the street, shot dad. Last time I looked, he's still in the hospital. While he was shielding his 6-year-old, the 6-year-old was hit in the face with a bullet fragment, shot mom, and then it emerged days and days later that he was yelling at them about being white. But that was not in the initial reporting, and then the news media just stopped talking about it because that doesn't conform with the narrative, But here's the deal: Memphis, Tennessee, #1 homicide city, highest homicide rate. New Orleans, Louisiana, #2 homicide. We're talking about Democrat hotspots here: Memphis, Tennessee, and Louisiana. Now, the Democrats, they love to pretend. And then Virginia, we've got, believe it or not, Richmond, Virginia, where John Hinckley had to cancel his concert at the burrito place. Richmond, Virginia is #3 for homicide rates. Now, these are Democrat hotbeds. #4 is my city, Washington, D.C. #4, we're #4, but climbing. And #5 is Detroit, Michigan. Now, these are all cities with a high concentration of an African-American population and Democrat-run cities in each and every instance. Now, the left, they love to say, ha, 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 hey, Republican states have the highest homicide rates. Look, Louisiana has a Republican, whatever, senator and maybe a governor. And yeah, but the murders are all taking place in the Democrat-run cities. There are 10,000 ways to lie in the naked city, and the Democrats know all of them. So, yeah, Memphis, Tennessee, you ever been there? It can be pretty rough. #1 homicide rate. New Orleans, Democrat hotbed, #2. Richmond, Virginia. It's what they call, I don't use that red, blue, purple stuff. It's an in-between state politically because the left is obviously red. Who are we kidding? And the Democrat Party needs to be red. But they got to choose first, so they stole blue and stuck the Republicans with red. It was a game of musical chairs. We used to swap them back and forth every other election cycle, or every election cycle. And then they stopped that when they got blue and gave us red. Oh, no, we're just going to keep blue and you guys are red forever. Now, they're further left than they've ever been, and we call them blue and Republicans red. That makes no sense at all, does it? Wow, yowza. So we got that going first. All right, let's, but fear not. Because, standardized college entrance exams are down 30% nationwide. So we got that going for us. The ACT scores, that's what they're called, right? The ACT scores. And they are down 30% across the country. You know why? Democrats. That's actually why. Because of Democrats. Because they are... Yeah, the number of students taking the ACT scores, just amazing. Amazing. ACT test scores dropped to their lowest in 30 years. nearly a third of a century because Democrats. But so ACT scores are down, but homicide rates are up. In fact, homicide rates in Philadelphia are up 30%, and ACT scores down 30%. The Democrats are doing a heck of a job. That's a fact. It turns out, let's go to soundbite number 7, Jeff. Turns out I was talking about Perry Bacon Jr., the Washington Post, who's a racist and hates America. And he's advising, left wing. We've had would-be assassins show up outside the home of Brett Kavanaugh, Supreme Court Justice. We've had dozens of people murdered in their riots, thousands of police injured, police murdered in suicide attacks by Democrats in Washington, D.C., and New York, and Dallas, and Baton Rouge, and beyond, including a U.S. Capitol police officer murdered in a suicide attack. His name was William Evans. The Democrats don't know that. Nancy Pelosi couldn't tell you that. But Perry Bacon of the Washington Post went on The Daily Show on Comedy Central to encourage lefties to confront and hassle and harass Republicans wherever you may find them.
Where do we go from here? Is there any solution?
I think ultimately we have to, in the short term, shame them out of passing the most aggressive version of these bills. Criticize them enough to make sure that they are told when they go to church or when they go to the grocery store that you passed a terrible bill and acted like a bigot.
You acted like a bigot. Now, they're talking about radical bills like you have to register to vote before Election Day, or you have to have an ID to vote, like you do in South Africa, for example, or in France, because they're very bigoted countries. So you got to hassle them, and you've got to shame them and disgrace them. And when you see them going to church, you should harass them. When you see them in a grocery store, he said you should harass them. And then, Senator Rand Paul, who was violently attacked in his front yard by a Democrat who tackled him from behind unannounced, broke 6 ribs, punctured his lung. He and his wife were attacked on 15th Street in Washington, D.C., the last night of the Republican convention. He was on a baseball field when a Bernie Sanders volunteer showed up with a Chinese rifle and shot Congressman Steve Scalise and tried to murder every Republican member of Congress on that field, and they were all Republicans. And that included Ron DeSantis and Rand Paul, just by the way. So this is Comedy Central propaganda, Perry Bacon Jr. advising all kinds of horrible treatment, and this is fine with the Washington Post.
Are you sure that shame would work with Kentucky Republicans? I mean, look at Rand Paul. If I got my ass kicked in my front yard by my neighbor, I would never leave my house again.
I'm not saying it's a foolproof point, and I'm just saying that these legislators have to walk in public and live their life, and I do think you want to make clear that you have done something terrible.
Yeah, done something terrible by making our voting laws almost as stringent as France. Not quite as stringent as South Africa. This is about stealing elections, shaming people. It's about stealing votes and stuffing ballot boxes and ballot harvesting. If you prohibit ballot harvesting, you're a bigot. Well, only if, you're a racist. But that's the conversation we're having. You may remember Hanoi Jane. She had an idea of her own, for Republicans and people she disagrees with.
Besides marching and protesting, what else do you suggest?
Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a miraculous. What did you say? Murder.
She's kidding. Wait a second. She's just kidding.
Don't say that. That's
you don't know. They'll pick up on that and just run with it.
Yeah, that's the worst.
She's just kidding.
Well, let me talk to you about.
She made a face like she's not kidding.
About Jane's activism.
Yeah, Hanoi Jane, communist, traitor, treasonous, the war against terror, but never mind that. Boy, that's pretty good stuff. That's your Democrat Party. It'd be funnier if a communist didn't shoot John F. Kennedy in the head and a Democrat didn't shoot. And shall I go on? And if all these murders weren't being committed and didn't have a murderer outside Brett Kavanaugh's house, and if it weren't true that the Democrats have normalized political violence again. Let's go to soundbite number 13, Jeff, because that was on The View with, what are they called? Sonny, Joy, and Whoopi. 3 of the most miserable, unhappy people you're ever going to find anywhere. And they are ironically named Whoopi, Joy, and Sonny. No sense of irony, and completely absurd. So Here they are, Whoopi Goldberg. There is a transgender person who has been elected to the State House as a state representative in, of all places, Montana, believe it or not. Zooey is and it's not the person's real name, but they all changed their names. Whoopi Goldberg, for example, is named Karen Johnson, but she wanted to pretend to be Jewish and happy. But Zooey Zephyr disrupted, and the Democrats are big on doing this, and then when you point out that the Democrats are disrupting the business of state, the media don't call it an insurrection. They say, oh, it's a legitimate protest. No, they're elected members who are disrupting, like the Tennessee Three, the Chicago Seven. Transgender lawmaker Zooey Zephyr returns to work in the hallway. Yahoo News very upset after Montana GOP discipline. Zooey, the tranny, disrupted the business of the state again and again and again on the floor, saying, you have blood on your hands, and that's not hyperbole. No, actually, that is hyperbole. As you can see, no one actually has blood on their hands. But they use the words without knowing what they mean. Pretty amazing. So here is Whoopi, the ironically named Whoopi, the absurdly named Goldberg, chanting for Zooey Zephyr, the Montana transgender disruptor, who was told that Zooey couldn't vote from the floor anymore for the rest of the session, have to do it from home. So instead of doing it from home, Zooey Zephyr has now moved into the hallway of the State House to, get media attention, and it works. Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah. Now, the House Republicans banned her from the chamber for the remainder of the legislative session, claiming she broke the rules of decorum. But protesters are demanding that they let her speak. Now, what the hell is going on in this country? That's what I want to know.
That's a good question. What the hell is going on in this country?
What are the rules that say, I don't like what you're saying, so I'm going to get a whole bunch of people to think like I think, and we're going to ban you from talking. When did that become the law of the land?
Funny you should ask, because I looked it up, and there is no law.
No,
there is no law.
She looked it up. Sonny looked it up. God, what a bunch of morons. They're just couldn't be more dumb. And Whoopi, the idiot, even said it herself, violated the rules of decorum. Their rules of operating the legislature. The rules were violated, and Zooey Zephyr was told you need to stop disrupting. Zooey Zephyr kept disrupting, kept making absurd claims like you literally have blood on your hands, and that's not hyperbole. And there is no law. So yet, Sonny, these are very dim-witted people. And ABC network pays them millions of dollars. Isn't that amazing? Gosh. Rules. And also, if Republicans disrupted, and I think Republicans should disrupt every Democrat state house from now until forever, just to once again reveal the hypocrisy of these idiots. Then Whoopi Goldberg, they don't believe in parents' rights and they don't believe in God, but here they are, the left, and ABC pays them millions of dollars.
Oh my God, this is a party that says we believe in parents' rights. You're telling me that as a parent, I'm not smart enough to decide if my child and I need to have gender affirming. Our doctors are not involved. What is going? So I can't decide what my kid reads. I can't decide for my child what my child says is going on. You're telling me your beliefs, and they keep saying it, and I keep saying, what Bible are you reading? Because God was really clear.
Very clear.
Very clear. Wait, God, that wasn't over. God was very clear. God was very clear that children need to be transgender. I don't know what Bible you're reading, but God was very clear, she says in the Bible, that, we need transgender children. And gender-affirming care. Now, this is for minors. In schools, you can't give a child an aspirin. And what we're talking, I can't, she's hysterical and shrill and irrational. No, actually, Whoopi, Karen, your real name, I'm going to dead name her, Karen, we're talking about you guys passing bills where school administrators change the gender of your child without informing the parent. That's what parents' rights is about. That's what we're talking about. And we're saying what your kids can read. Well, bring in Gender Queer to The View and open it up and show the audience the graphic depictions of man-on-boy sex and get back to me about that. And, children have to be of the age of majority to get their ears pierced. I had a story the other day about a father being arrested for piercing his son's ear. But never mind that. This is your Democrat Party, and this is the media. And again, it's ABC Network, and they pay these people millions of dollars for their ignorance and their anger, and they're vile and vulgar. Oh, I've got Democrats that desecrated the National Gallery of Art here in Washington, D.C. yesterday because the weather and a Degas sculpture that's coming up.
There's only one Chris Plante. The Chris Plante Show.
My friend Marty, I was talking about it yesterday, the Biden people want to make all our military vehicles electric so they'll run out of battery power, Chinese battery power in the middle of the desert and not be able to charge. They're not on our side. So maybe first we should make the presidential limo fleet electric. And how about the helicopters? We can make the helicopters electric too. Joe Biden in the Gallup poll has hit rock bottom. The Gallup poll has never rated him this low, 37% approval, 59% disapproval. That's the lowest the Gallup polling people have had for him as president. Now let's go to the Democrats who invaded the National Gallery of Art yesterday and desecrated Edgar Degas' sculpture, Little Dancer, age 14. It's called Keep the Democrats Away from Her. She'll be gender dysphoric in no time. It's fortunately in a glass case because they know that Democrats are coming. It sounded like this. Two Democrats, one from North Carolina, one from Brooklyn. They've got jars of paint, and they're dipping their hands in the black paint and the red paint, smearing the stuff all over the plexiglass case and the foundation and the wood floor. Thousands in damage.
I'm in a place that I respect, that I consider to be the highest element of human expression. Human expression and human innovation. It's beautiful, and we're destroying it with climate change.
And the man was...
our leaders to take serious action to tell us the truth about what is happening with the climate.
The climate.
We need them to stop authorizing nuclear.
Officer, may I recommend the use of a nightstick? A radical left-wing group of idiots called Climate Defiance will blockade the White House Correspondents' Dinner to demand an end to fossil fuel extraction. That's more Democrats. I'm going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner tomorrow night. You watch it on C-SPAN. Look for me.